Thank you for having me, Brian.
Thank you for coming, Stephanie. Stephanie Miranda Jhala, is that right?
Yeah.
That's how you say it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you here today, and really looking forward to seeing where our conversation goes in regards to everything that's unfolding in the world right now. I'm really interested to hear your points of view on how we can move forward in a good way and how we can, address this and, yeah. So, whatever thoughts you have, just go ahead and share and chat.
Okay. Well, we are in the midst of the Great Awakening, and my sense is that we have been at this for many, many, many lifetimes. That for many, many lifetimes, for thousands and thousands of years, we have been battling the dark to bring forth the light. And from what I know in my heart, that this is the turning point in humanity, where we're finally actually coming to truth and having the light prevail, and that the light has already won. And so it's just this unfolding and unraveling of every level of society, every level of government, every level of our financial systems, every level of our education systems, every level of our space programs, every level of our businesses that have to crumble down. And before I intuitively knew this, I guess I'd been speaking in many businesses and conferences about putting the old earth to rest and letting the structures of the old earth crumble and birthing the new earth and building the new wave of leadership, the new way of the way that the world needs to work. And I spoke about it, but I never really knew what I was talking about until now, where it's like, you look around and you're like, wow, every level of our society has been corrupted and infiltrated. But when we start looking at all these levels, and that's going to help activate us to transform it. When we see what we don't want, then we can create what we do want. And you're speaking about having to make this creation outside of the box. This is a very exciting time, if we want to call it exciting, and choose for it to be exciting, to really use our creativity and really use our inner guidance to birth something that none of us have any idea how to do. It's a great task, and I think it's very exciting.
I think so too. I'm going to shut off this heater because it's making a lot of sound right now. So let me ask you this. How are we going to create this new world? Which I see that as well. And I guess this question I have for myself, I have for you, I have for anyone really. How do we go about creating that new in the midst of the old crumbling and falling away, which I quite agree. That is very much what we're seeing, and it's also it feels like it's a somewhat painful and difficult process, and it's also trying to hook us and hold on to us. And so what are the means that we have for taking those hooks out and letting them fall and just go away while we continue to vision into what we do want and take steps towards that.
Mm-hmm. This is something that I have to have great patience with, because I'm always like, okay, let's just get to the good times. Let's just build this new school, and it's great. We can just make it happen now. But you're right. We have to, in a way, honor the grieving and the death process. This is like a huge death on a global scale, on a planetary scale. And the other day I was listening to someone talk about an ego death. And what is an ego death? An ego death is where everything about you dies because you've outgrown that old paradigm. So you might have lost your job, completely changed careers, left a significant relationship, had a major health scare, and all of these things have been happening to me at a very intense, rapid rate. I, went through postpartum depression with my first child. My husband at the time, who was a good heart, but felt like if I didn't go back to my corporate job, then we wouldn't have enough money. So he said, figure out how to make money on your own. So I was new mother, severely sleep deprived, no money, no financial support from my husband, trying to figure out what to do. So I went through a divorce and then got stage 3 ovarian cancer, had to heal, had to move, had to leave all my communities, put my business on hold. Everything about my old world had to die in order to birth the new me. And it's almost like this constant death and rebirth, death and rebirth, death and rebirth process. And it's very painful. And if you can imagine that happening to every single person on the planet right now, because we have outgrown all of these old draconian structures. We have outgrown these financial systems of slavery. We have outgrown the 9 to 5 sell my soul desk job. All of us feel it. We've outgrown the medical systems that give us no real answers or miraculous cures in our bodies. We've outgrown all of these ways, and I'm not trying to say that any of the people that work in these spaces are bad people. It's just we've done what we've done to this world with what we know, with what we've been trained and taught to do. But there's going to be a point where it's not going to resonate anymore. And people outside of the systems and inside the systems are going to start to transform themselves. And then they're no longer going to be able to tolerate the status quo. And I definitely don't really have all the answers, because what I can see is that this could create major economic collapse. This could create major collapse in our food chain supply and our food system. Even the way that we do agriculture and farming, the way that our seeds, the sovereignty of our seeds have been taken away and genetically modified and controlled by a monopoly. We need to now figure out, how do we not rely on these big corporations to distribute our foods, but how do we bring back the wisdom of the earth, the wisdom of the small farmer, the wisdom of sustainability and renewability, the wisdom of the original seed? How do we bring that wisdom back when it's been lost for so many generations? How do we create that again? There's going to be a bumpy ride in between, and I'm bracing myself for it. So I teeter-totter between, being a little scared for my family, scared for my newborn baby, scared for my daughter. My daughter who lives with her dad half the time, and her dad has no idea about any of this stuff that's happening, and I have to be her anchor and bring her back to safety and truth when she's going back and forth between somebody that loves her so much but has no idea about all this agenda behind the scenes about the New World Order or what masks really mean. And he'd be probably first in line to get a vaccine, and so I have to, it's scary for me too, but at the same time, not to, I want to know, but I also have to at some point detach and keep my vibration in a place that is going to help the new earth come to fruition by staying in my heart, staying open, staying strong. And it doesn't mean that I don't cry, because I've had many sleepless nights, and many nights where I've had to cry and grieve, and that's okay, because crying is healing. Tears are healing. It's releasing.
That's it, live.
It's very important to get that energy out. But you were speaking earlier about the Maharishi effect, and maybe you want to explain that.
Well, just the understanding that there was actually an experiment done quite a number of years ago to study the effects of meditation, and so what they did was they gathered a large group of people to focus on peace, and so these are people who are practiced in meditation, and so they all did that at the same time, and there was a measurement taken of violent crime in that area, and it was shown very clearly that the result of the meditation was that violent crime seriously dropped. Like it went way down during the time period that the meditation was happening. And so, from that and other experiments that have followed since that time, we can draw on that and find some information there for ourselves about, something that we can do. I see this as a place of activism for us to go within. Like there's all these things that we're doing in the external world, as we were talking about, whether it's having a rally or supporting fundraising for filing lawsuits on a provincial or federal level, or whether media and spreading the truth, raising awareness, and having those sometimes difficult conversations with people who are seeing things in a very different way, and things are quite polarized in that arena, so to speak. And so yeah, I keep coming back to this recognition within myself that that as creator beings, we don't actually start our creation out there in the world by picking up a shovel and digging and pounding the post in or whatever we're doing. I do carpentry, so that's my analog. We dream it first. We use our imagination. We use our mental capacity to vision. So we see those creations before they're made manifest. There's a whole series of steps, obviously, to get to something actually existing in our three-dimensional reality. And so kind of my focus at the moment, at least, is recognizing that's valid work for us to do, as well as having a rally, as well as filing lawsuits and all those other things. Those are all relevant, as the way I see it anyway. And I think maybe our movement could, to call it that, could benefit from more people recognizing that that the practice of intention, the practice of visioning or accessing the imagination is actually where the new earth begins. That's where it all actually starts. And then from there are every other step to creating it too. There's conversations to be had. There's it's all a co-creation. No one person does the whole picture.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Well, it's so important, like you said, that there's going to be some third dimensional physical things that have to happen, but also we are learning a new way of being, and we are essentially going from the third dimension to the fifth dimension, which really is just a higher level of consciousness, a higher vibration, and the vibration of love. But the vibration of love doesn't exist in our mind. It comes from our heart. And so what I'm taking on as a personal practice is, how can I start creating what I'm to do in this third dimensional world, but coming from the heart first. And my ego wants to be like, go to rallies and be a speaker and gather thousands of people and be the Mahatma Gandhi of the world. But in my reality, I have 2 young children, a very limited time in sleep, and mouths to feed, and that takes up day and night, day and night. I'm feeding and feeding and feeding and breastfeeding the world. And today in my meditation, I saw this old man, and I saw this was a true story where I was in Morocco in a very ancient village, and this little old man, he was in rags and he was very thin, but he had such a warm smile. And every day he said he would bring whatever food he had. He didn't have much, but he would bring his food to this alley, and all the cats would come and he'd feed the cats. And he would do this. He said he'd been doing this every day for decades. And the lesson for me was to come back down in my humility. Simplicity can go a long ways. I don't have to do these big marches, and there's absolutely a place and an importance for that, but not all of our roles have to be to save the world. We think it has to be some big grand thing. We can be saving the world in such profound ways within our own sphere, like simply just healing ourselves. And when we talk about an ego death, like if we just focused on coming into peace with ourselves, with our bodies, with our parents, with our siblings, with just forgiving everything that we need to forgive and let go of, and doing that deep healing, that automatically, because all of those dense traumas can't come to the new earth, because the new earth won't have that as the foundation of our existence. The new earth will be the foundation of just love being our normal state. But we have been living in thousands and thousands of years of damaged trauma in our DNA, in our cells. And we have that cellular memory of our traumas, generational trauma, ancestral trauma, past life trauma. It carries in the memories of our bodies. And simply just healing ourselves from that is going to help us release this density, release this energy, and go into the next dimension. My partner and I, we work a lot on a multi-dimensional level, and we've really, when people say that this is a spiritual battle, it really is a spiritual battle. And I don't think that everyone, this conversation might not resonate for everybody, but it really is a battle of the light and the dark, and not so we get scared, but just so that we're aware of what we're actually dealing with on a multi-dimensional level, on a level of things like we close our eyes and we think it's just imagination, but it's actually us creating a reality in our mind. This is the process of manifestation. And it's like, if you're sometimes you're thinking of somebody and then all of a sudden they call, that is manifestation. We have telepathic capabilities, and the higher we start vibrating, the more normal it will become for all of us as a collective to activate our psychic abilities, activate our higher dimensional abilities. And so when you're talking about meditation, sitting in meditation and as a collective, I almost feel like the more awakened that you are, like tend to your own garden, it will telepathically translate in the energy field of the collective consciousness. So just doing your own work here. But I've really started like looking at how the cabal or the Illuminati or the deep state, or whatever you want to call it, the dark, has infiltrated every level of our existence. And for example, my partner is an expert in food and how we can use food to heal and food to ascend. And kitty cat, that's okay. Hi, kitty. Oh, you know what? I love cats. So my partner is telling us how, the cabal will use certain food colorings, for example, the red food coloring or the green food coloring or the yellow food coloring, to damage a certain chakra. And when you eat that cookie or that thing that has that food coloring, it actually creates trauma and damage to that energy center in your body. And that's how, demons and darker beings, lower vibrational beings can kind of jump into your body because your soul is traumatized and it leaves your body, it disassociates, which
Right.
is kind of what they do with the MK Ultra program, essentially mind control, and you know, where they traumatize you to the point where your soul has to leave the body and it dissociates. And when your soul is out of its body, it doesn't feel safe and grounded in this body. That's when the cabal entities can come and basically possess you. And so their whole goal is really to keep you in fear, to keep you traumatized, to keep you in these lower vibrations, to keep you stressed and worried about money, worried about paying rent, worried about busy, so you don't have time to heal and just stay still and look within. And we are reclaiming our sovereignty. We're reclaiming the power that we have within ourselves, the wisdom that we have within ourselves, and activating that wisdom so that we can heal and come back to our true self. And our true self is more powerful than the cabal. They can only go so high in their vibration. That's why they need to feed off our energy. But we are now awakening that we are not tolerating, whether people understand the spiritual side of this war or not, people are knowing that. Before I was in touch with my spiritual side, I just knew in every ounce of my being I could not go back to my corporate job. I just could not go back. And I was willing to lose my marriage over it, because my soul knew that if I went back, my soul would die. I had to follow the path of my soul, even if I really didn't know. I didn't know where I was going to live. I didn't know how I was going to make money. I didn't know how I was going to feed myself and my daughter. I had no idea. But I chose that path. I had to do it because there was something about it that was calling me forward, pulling me forward to trust. And these were very difficult times. So on a collective, we're all going through this, and we can feel, like, you know, just going to the grocery store, you can feel the tension, you can feel the energy. So it's like, you know, some of us follow some movements where they say put on the armor of God. Like I literally, like, I put on my armor. It's golden. It's like I'm like this golden cat with my armor on and I walk in with all my angels and all my council of light. And it's funny because before, when I didn't do that, I would get into mask fights. I'd get, like, the fight would attract to me and I'd have to be defending my rights. And then I started protecting myself, and then people were all of a sudden smiling at me, asking me how my day was, not even mentioning anything about the mask. I'm not wearing a mask. I'm getting my celery juice to help keep my vibration high, and somebody else with a mask comes along and is just like, oh, what do you do with all that celery? Having wonderful conversations with me and making jokes and being so lovely, and then I walk out and I'm like, okay, nobody said anything. And so we can do that. We can actually create our own reality and vibrate higher, that we just, like, we don't have to be in the fight. We miss the fight. It's like the fight won't even come into contact.
So I was just saying a while ago, I got some information from this organization called Action for Canada. Mm-hmm. And they have what they call boots on the ground business campaign, where they've prepared some documentation that you can deliver to a business owner, and you can, you know, let them know that, you know, according to the Charter of Rights in Canada, and particularly in British Columbia, the BC Human Rights Code has certain laws actually set out that apply to all of us, that hold that it is true that we have certain rights, such as the right to assemble, the right to association, security of the person. There's a whole list of them, and at the time, and a part of the campaign is the idea that you can take this information and go have a conversation with a business owner and let them know what your rights are. Not necessarily the best moment to do this when you're trying to shop, for instance, but, you know, if you're that person, you could just go and have this conversation, because a lot of people aren't they're not up to speed. They don't realize these things. All they hear is public health says everyone has to wear a mask, and so even though that's not law, that's just a mandate, and that's actually below what the law is. The store owners are still they're being the enforcers. They've been put in the position of the enforcers, and and I think in many cases they're afraid that if they don't do that, something will go wrong for them too. So anyway, when I got this understanding that this campaign was happening, I kind of felt concerned about whether or not I could even have that conversation in a calm way with a business owner, because things are so polarized. And anyway, I see now, yes, I can, and I have done so, and I feel that that's one of the things that we can do. And when we do that, if there's somebody there who's an observer, who's close to that moment for themselves, when they're ready to accept that their government isn't really looking after them the way we would expect them to, based on the fact that we essentially hire them to do this job, right? To protect our freedoms. That's why they exist. And so it's a pretty hard thing to accept that that's not actually happening. And yet, when you dig a little deeper and you see how long things have been this way, well, it's easier to accept, and it's also easier to understand how this has happened incrementally. It's not like somebody just quickly pulled the wool over my eyes and all of a sudden I believed everything that they were telling me. It's a generational thing. It's been in existence, and it's been happening for so long that it's almost imperceptible, It's very difficult to tell when it started, I think.
And especially in Canada, we, just only a few short years ago, I thought, wow, I'm so lucky to live in Canada, because I've traveled to places like Myanmar, where they live in a brutal, violent military regime of communism, and people, for protesting peacefully, monks peacefully protesting in the street, are literally lit on fire by the military, burnt alive. And for making comments on Facebook, they are being tracked and monitored. They don't have freedom of speech, and they're not safe. Someone posted on Facebook, I spoke to a man, and he commented on this woman's dress and said how beautiful her dress was. She happened to be the woman that stands for freedom and peace in the country, who's been on house arrest, Aung San Suu Kyi, who's essentially like the Nelson Mandela of Myanmar. And because he liked her dress, they put him in jail because he was liking somebody that was against the communist regime. And people think in Canada, like, oh, we're so lucky, we live in the land of the free. But we're actually so unaware of our comfy slavery that we gladly give away so much of our earnings to taxes. We gladly pay our exorbitant mortgages. We gladly work our 9-to-5 jobs and completely give our life, our soul away to live for the weekend. Which weekend, even our language, weakened. We're weakened. We wake up.
I call that green language.
Yes.
Weakened.
Our language has been greenwashed, and I'm just only starting to get into learning and understanding. Like, you stand under me, you understand, stand under me, how our language has even taken away our power. Good morning, morning being the morning of something where you're mourning a death. Good morning, so you're waking up to death. And, awake, when you say I'm awake is a funeral for the dead.
Oh, interesting.
Soldier, the word soldier has the word soul and die in it. death of the soul.
Soul dire.
Soul dire.
Yeah.
And it's in so many, it's in every part of our existence to keep us from manifesting. Even when we say, I want to manifest infinite abundance. Infinite, the word infinite, in is already a negation. Finite means the end. So how is that a word to manifest? We don't even have the language to manifest what we want to create. And so that's why I turn to meditation, because when I see what I see in my mind, there's no words, there's no language to describe it. It's beyond words. And that helps me create the future that I want to live in. But right now, like, it's hard to be.
You're actually seeing it.
Because I'm
You're not hung up on definitions or the understandings that we have about words that are incorrect. Because the words, as you said, have those other frequencies attached to them that take us off track, so to speak, that help us to create the thing that we actually didn't think we were creating or didn't want to create. And we put all this time and energy into writing it down or saying the words, but the words are actually leading in another direction that we don't even see.
The words are keeping us in a vibrational box that can't be transcended. So we have to even create new language here. There's going to be a job for everybody, and everybody will have a special gift. But right now we have to weather the storm, and that is the painful death of our entire system, of the way the planet is, as it is right now. It all has to disintegrate and crumble.
So what does weathering the storm mean to you? Are there steps to take? Are there actions to take? Or is it just, withdraw and
It's it's something that I think will feel
Is it
different for everyone. But it for me, it has to be a bit of a balance, because I'm quite outspoken, and for some reason I just always have this drive to just be the big mouth, but I always get like shot in the foot sometimes, where I'll speak my truth. I'll be willing to be at the front of the freedom fighters, and I think, like, in many, many, many lifetimes, like, I have been that warrior leading the charge of the army, protecting the people, saving us from all of our wealth and our sovereignty being taken away. I've been in many lifetimes as that warrior. And so sometimes that comes out in me, whether it's like speaking at the Freedom Rally or a Facebook post, but then I'm not always prepared for the counterattack. And it's like, it hurts, I think a lot of us have been through this, where we'll post because our intention is good. Our intention is light. We want to awaken people. Like, look, like, we are standing for you. Like, we get, you're wearing the mask because you think that you're protecting me from a virus, but I'm actually wearing no mask because I am protecting your right to breathe oxygen. For me, it's hard to really get, like, before masks, people knew that oxygen was critical for your immune system. And I went to I have to go to BC Ferries every week to commute my daughter back and forth to see her dad. And I had tremendous, anxiety going there, because I was bullied quite severely by their staff, by their terminal manager. And, not everyone was mean to me, but there were people who were kind, but sadly still following these inhumane mandates that are not laws, that they think are laws, but are not, and are willing to subject a breastfeeding mother with her newborn baby to inhumane regulation. When I have a mask exemption, when I have a doctor's note, and they're still willing to do that, because they think they're doing something good. And so it takes a lot of like emotional strength to be in those situations, and sometimes it feels like it's easier to hide. And I think we have to learn to balance between standing up and doing, like, being vocal in this very physical, sometimes confrontational way. But hopefully we can get it to a place of not confrontation, and bring people back down to their humanity. You know, I had to like sometimes just say, look, it is a violation of my human rights to disclose my medical condition. But if I have to tell you so that you have some sense of humanity, I'm going to let you know that I just healed from stage 3 ovarian cancer. And I was at the grocery store, and I said, I healed because of your fruits and vegetables. Your fruits and vegetables are my medicine. And I need it because it carries the oxygen that I need to heal myself and keep myself well. And I need the oxygen from the air to keep myself well, because I'm in remission from cancer. And if you deny me the right to grocery shop here, and you refuse to accommodate me, that is a violation of my human rights. And I have to tell you, to help you connect the dots in your head, that what if you're denying me critical sustenance to keep me alive? Are you willing to be responsible for that? And
Right,
sometimes
sign here.
Sign here. State your name. Nobody wants to do that.
Yep.
So sometimes it's like you have to just pick and choose what information you want to share, what fights you want to, like, not that you want to really get into a fight, but you know, I can be stubborn. So it's like sometimes the warrior comes out in me, the mama bear, like, you know what? If you want me to wear a mask, you're gonna have to tackle me and my baby and my toddler. Tackle me, I'm ready for it. You know, sometimes I get that fire in me, and then
You know, I know that there's.
I have to like deep breath, Steph. Like, you're not here to be.
I so appreciate I so appreciate you saying that, and being that person who's capable of doing that. And maybe, you know, you don't always feel like doing it. And you talk about balance, and there's that too, right? You don't always necessarily feel like you can be that person. But I'll just say, you know, there's people out there who have those same critical needs, who maybe don't ever feel like they can be that person, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just want to express their appreciation to you in case they haven't, because I know sometimes I feel like I can be that person, and other times I just feel like, I went into town to meet a couple of friends and go for a walk, and our agreement was we're going to go to the garage and we'll get a coffee or a tea, and then we'll go for a walk. And when I arrived, I just decided, you know what, I'm not going to get a tea. I don't need it that bad, but I have to put myself in that environment where I'm either, you know, being that warrior spirit or acquiescing on some level. Either, you know, I didn't want to do either of those, and so I just abstained from having a nice cup of tea with my friends. I mean, we still got to go for a walk, so, you know, it was a minor loss, but I think there's a lot of people out there who are going through that on a bigger level. You know, they just can't wear a mask. They can't wear a mask, and they're not being accommodated. You know, like I'm hearing from. I went into Canadian Tire in Duncan last week, and I got past the person at the door by saying I have an exemption, which I do, and so I was like, okay, well, this seems pretty easy. Off I goes. Going to buy a heater for my daughter's room, and I got about halfway to that department and actually bumped into a manager, and you know, he told me that I have to leave, and so we had a fairly lengthy conversation actually, and he kept telling me how busy he was and he just didn't have time for this and I have to leave, and so I, you know, did my thing, and I tried to help him get educated as to what the actual law is and what the exemptions are and where I fit into that and where he fits into that. And his response boiled down to basically, I don't care. I don't care. Look around. Everybody else in here is wearing a mask. And I don't know if this is too candid for like me outing the manager of Canadian Tire, but he said, you know, I know these people have drank the Kool-Aid. I know that it's bullshit. That's what he said. And I don't care. You have to leave. I'm being paid to argue with you. That's verbatim what he said. So that's also something that I very much see happening right now, is that all of this stuff that's happening is being rolled out on public opinion. It has nothing to do with the law. It's public health, which looks like law, and yet it's not law. But as long as public opinion is on side, as long as public opinion has been sufficiently brainwashed to be in agreement with the mandates, with the rules, with the orders, the regulations, the ordinances, all of these, then it doesn't matter if it's illegal or unlawful, because public opinion has become the police. So it's those people, it's those other people that are in the store that are looking at you like, what, you're so selfish. You know, you're killing people by not wearing a mask, is kind of the insinuation that's being made by everyone's eyes. Not everyone, of course not everyone. But in general, the public is on side, shall we say, with the orders and the mandates. And so the law is becoming somewhat irrelevant in that sense, that even though I could file a complaint with the Human Rights Commission, and I could eventually get that complaint verified by the BC Human Rights Commission, and once it's verified, I could ask the store to change their policy, and they could refuse, and then I could take them to small claims court. That's kind of the process, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Now, the difficulty with that is that could take a couple of years.
Yeah.
And in the meantime,
You still need to go to the store.
I still need to go to the store, and we don't really have a couple of years before maybe things get worse, you know, because if public opinion says everyone should wear a mask, then how much longer after that is it that public opinion says you should also not be allowed to shop if you haven't had a vaccination, you know, or your second vaccination and your truth stamp or whatever they call it, or you know, the digital biometric identification system that, you know, shows the inspector that you've had your vaccination.
Well, I think the challenge is that they've done such a good job in our education system to have us not challenge authority. Trust authority, not challenge authority, memorize, just follow, and anyone that strays aside is seen as a troublemaker. And the thing is, I see that everyone inherently has a good heart, because they think that they're doing what they're doing is right. They think that by wearing a mask, they're protecting other people.
Right.
But the problem is that they're not protecting people. And anybody who, you know, I asked the woman at BC Fairs, I said, how does it feel to wear a mask? I asked everyone, and she said, it feels terrible. It feels terrible to wear a mask. Our inner trust of our own intuition, our own body's wisdom has been taken away from us, where somebody's going to wear a mask for 8 hours a day at a shift and completely deprive themselves of oxygen to brain damaging carbon dioxide levels. You know, like my daughter was in the NICU when she was born because she didn't breathe, and by accident they put a breathing tube that was too small for her, a breathing tube for premature babies, when she was a large, robust, full-term baby. And she wasn't getting enough oxygen to the brain. Guess what happened? Seizures. She had 4 seizures. If not, it's like people are like, where's the proof? Where's the science? There's lots of science. It's being censored. But this is my personal proof enough that I will not let my child wear a mask. She has already been lucky enough to recover from potentially irreversible brain damage because of lack of oxygen. I'm not going to put her, and I'm happy to be the one to wear no mask so that somebody else that doesn't feel brave enough in the future won't have to. And we all have to, we can pick and choose our battles. We don't all have to be that maskless warrior in the grocery store. If that's not for you, let someone else like me be that person, because I feel like it's my calling to be in that role. We all have different roles to play. So if you feel like your role is better suited by protecting your energy at home and homeschooling your kids and having fun with them, and that's your way of healing or staying in the right state of mind so that you can protect yourself and your family, that's okay too. If that's your way, everyone's going to have their different way of helping the cause, and it doesn't have to be marching publicly. We can do our silent work. It can be online anonymously by making like an avatar online. My partner's like very, very much at the forefront of the storm on Twitter. He's at the forefront of the storm online, and that gives him a lot of energy and excitement, because he loves to be at the brink of knowing exactly what's going on at every level of this battle, if you want to call it a battle, or the Great Awakening. So we got to pick and choose like what's going to help elevate us. And for a while I was putting stuff out on Facebook, and then after a while I was just like, you know what, I can't do it anymore. I had to block and delete some people that I really love, not because I don't love them anymore, but because I had like my own personal team of fact checkers. Anything I would post, it would be the same 5 guys, debunked, conspiracy theory, and putting, I can't wait until, Qantas CEO says mandatory vaccines, I can't wait till this is implemented, so you're going to have to be forced vaccinated. I've had people wish COVID death on me online for questioning, like these health mandates, like, hey, whatever happened to eating like foods that are good for you, exercise, fresh air, hugs, being exposed to germs that are going to naturally boost your immune system. Whatever happened to that? And like I'm now having to really educate myself at beyond doctor level of vaccinations, just so that I can really hold my ground in a conversation, because those are some of the third dimensional things that we have to do. Like, okay, we can do our spiritual practice, hold the light in with meditation, and this is probably what I'm going to be doing is really gathering people to hold the light in meditation, transmuting the dark to the light, energetically, metaphysically, but then also on a third dimensional physical level, learn about my human rights and human rights code, learn how to become a sovereign being legally, learn about vaccines inside and out, so that I can intelligently help my fellow humans that
get educated,
still believe that vaccines are good for you. So, it's hard to believe that the government actually is not here to protect our well-being. It is really hard to believe that. And that's going to be a hard pill for many to swallow. But, before COVID hit, it was quite generally accepted for people to say, the 1% and the politicians are corrupt, and big business is corrupt, and big pharma's corrupt. But now that COVID's here, no, they're not corrupt anymore. They have our best intentions in mind, right? And you need to trust them and listen to them, and you're the corrupt conspiracy theorist now. Like, what? Like, I had so much support.
People are dying in the streets. Can't you see that?
All 166 people in Canada that died in COVID outside of nursing homes, and the flu is now all of a sudden gone. What the heck, are you Real says, what the heck? Right?
So I have a question I'm just been kind of sitting with, and what do you think? Do you what's your feeling or thoughts about? I'm not even sure how to word this. Does the universe, or the all, as it were, does it have its own desire for us? Is there a direction that it's moving in, and we're? Because that's kind of how I feel. Is that there's something that's already happening that we're not fully in control of. We're participating in it. We still have our say. We still have, our potential to create, and it exists and has its own movement, if you will, with or without us. What's your feeling about that? Which direction is that going? If we're seeing a new earth where love is the basis of everything, health is, something everyone's working towards in a natural and organic way. And I also feel like something you made a reference to earlier about telepathy, I tend to think that a lot of the technologies that exist in the world are actually some form of mimicry of something that we already have at a much deeper level that goes way beyond what a phone can do, sort of thing.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. I think that we have been lied to about the natural laws of the universe. And I remember specifically, I have a biochemistry degree, which is utterly useless. And now that I understand the laws of the universe, not that I know everything, because I'm still understanding it, I realize that we were taught that the laws of the universe is entropy, chaos, falling apart. Like if you don't tend to keep, continually cleaning up your house, it just becomes eventually a mess. And I think that that is what the cabal has done to us in so many multifaceted ways, is to keep us in the chaos, keep us in fear, so that everything about our lives just continuously unravel and fall apart. But that really takes a lot of effort, and it's quite an upstream battle. It's like when I was learning biochemistry, organic chemistry, nothing actually made sense. When I studied calculus, nothing actually really made sense. And then it dawned on me, like my partner's like, because it's fake science. It's fake math. It doesn't make sense because there's no synchronicities. And the laws of the universe is effortless, downstream, in the flow, where you see so many synchronicities or coincidences, like, every time, you'll see a confirmation here, a confirmation there. I got lost coming to your place because
Well, it's so lovely having you and your son here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. I think we've covered a lot of things, and I'm sure there's a lot more, and
So much.
I don't want to take too much of your time today. I just want to ask you, what things you think we might be able to see going forward that we can draw some hope from for ourselves, and any other sort of parting words or message that you want people to have.
Well, we were kind of alluding to, this is such a big transition where you're talking about the birth of the new earth. First, we have to have the death of the old earth, and speaking more in specifics, it's like our entire financial systems will have to be collapsed. We'll have to learn a new quantum grammar, quantum financial systems that exist to create sovereignty and freedom and abundance and prosperity. And so some of the things that we can take as signs that will help us know that we're going in the right direction is, for example, gold-backed currencies or silver-backed currencies, like currencies that are backed by real value versus just printed money that just comes out of printers.
Right.
I think that people need to really, when they're like, do your research, go to the source of things and know that, first of all, science, they're like, look at the science. It's like science can be bought and paid for.
Mm-hmm.
Science can be skewed and screwed. I come from a science background, and they showed us this is how you can manipulate data. It's very easy to manipulate data. And then when it goes through the filter of the media, it's very easy to do that too. So really, when you gotta really start discerning with your intuition, like, does it feel right or does something feel fishy? And really start trusting your inner gut. And we have been taught not to trust our inner gut because they know how powerful our higher intuition is. Trust the doctor, trust the teacher, trust the government official. But look at where it's led us. And I'm not saying that people are bad. We've signed up for this life to live in a space of duality, to have darkness and light, to learn and grow and heal. But now's the time to do the healing so that we don't have to go through all of that suffering anymore. And yeah, it's a hard one. Maybe I don't know. Maybe he needs someone to bop him around. If you want to bop him around.
Yeah, sure.
He might. He likes when I stand up. It's like, you must stand.
Oh yeah. Sure.
There we go. I believe that people that are meant to be doing it are actually building the necessary financial systems to help us transition into greatness, and slowly things are going to be coming out. Where there's, for example, going to be debt forgiveness and, taxes are going to be alleviated, mortgages are going to be canceled, things like that. But we have to discern where it's coming from. Is it, going to be, we will forgive your debt if you give us all your assets and rights? That might not be coming from a benevolent place. Or is it, your debt is being relieved and there's no strings attached? So we're gonna go through kind of like a muddy period of like, where's this coming from, what's the source, but also just trusting that whatever happens is perfect. And I used to have a lot of sadness because there was so much suffering in the world. Like, how could just like being in Myanmar and watching people that were in desolate famine, poverty. I cried every day when I was there because it was so hard to be with. But then I had to step back and look at it from a spiritual standpoint, that their soul signed up for this great awakening, and they were willing to go through all this suffering in this world to help wake us up, to help wake up our humanity, to help open our hearts of empathy and compassion, to come to a point where enough is enough. We're going to stand up.
Yeah.
We are not tolerating this anymore, and we are going to create a world that is loving and caring and kind. And so I just trust that whoever is going to, some of us are going to have to take the hit in order for us to make progress, and to know that when we get on the other side that we signed up for this, and we have to thank each other for all doing our part. And even like Dr. Fauci, we have to thank him for helping us wake up to kind of like the evil playbook that has been playing all along for thousands of years, so that we actually can create a new playbook that's going to honor people's sovereignty, that's going to honor people's freedoms, that's going to honor people's joy and happiness and right to just exist, in a wonderful planet. So I think that we have to, for the next few years, and I think it's going to take at least 4 to 6 years for these old systems that have been in place for millennia to be broken down and have the new systems come into place. And so maybe, and I can't say for sure, I really don't know, I don't have a looking glass of what it's going to be like, but maybe it's going to take a 4 or 5 year transition for us to get through in order to come to the other side. And maybe that does mean like making sure that we have our own land and grow our own food on our land and have seeds and have people that we can trust and have a supply of food and have these kind of go-to techniques that are going to help bring us back to our center. Like for you, it's music. It brings you back to it. It gives you that sense of hope and connection. Or painting or art or dancing or singing or hugging your loved ones and just going back to the basics of what keeps the human spirit alive. But we have to just keep the trust and keep the faith, because that is going to be what anchors us. Keeping the trust, keeping the faith is what's going to anchor us here in moving in the direction of the universe that the universe wants us to go in. So let's clear out the fear. Let's deal with reality, and then do the things that keep our souls in alignment, keep our soul energy protected. Deal with reality, know our rights, know the law, understand, common law versus martial law, and then also do the things that keep our hearts open, because that energy is going to always shine brighter than fear. Love always wins over fear. And it's not just some cheesy saying. Love always wins over fear. And all you gotta do is like look at a baby. Look at a baby. The other day someone was like, "Oh my God, your baby's so beautiful." I was like, "Do you want to hold him?" And people were scared, but then she tapped into her heart and was, "Can I hold him?" Well, maybe I'll wear a mask. I'll wear a mask just in case. I said, "Do whatever you want." And then she held him, and it melted her heart.
Yeah.
It's like you can't deny that you don't need science or a doctor to say that holding a baby is going to bring you joy, and just feeling that connection is going to bring you joy. And this is what we need. This is what we need to thrive. And I think that's going to start waking people up. It really is.
More babies.
More babies.
Yeah.
Sorry to the depopulation. More babies. And from a technology perspective, like trust that okay, there are aliens. Like we're not the only life in the galaxy. There's aliens. They have very advanced technology. All this stuff about the environment. Don't buy into that fear of climate change. We have all the technology to clean up this mess. Like, we've created a mess, but really it's the cabal that has created the mess, and we've just sadly been their minions to make the mess. But we're not doing that anymore. We want to clean up the oceans. We want to clean up the forests. We want to bring life back into the planet. There's technology to do it. There's technology to heal us all, to repair our DNA so we can just ascend. Trust that it's all going to come. We just have to make it through the next few years. Just keep our vibration high. Keep loving ourselves, keep loving our friends and our neighbors and our family. Do the healing work. And if anything triggers you, that's exactly what needs to be confronted and healed. Just do that work. And as soon as we shed all that extra weight, then we're just going to go fly off and play. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm hoping.
I think that's really well put, That's kind of the total picture. It sounded like, really, it's not one thing. There's a whole bunch of things that we need to do. Some of it is very out there in the world, and some of it's just really right back here at home, just keep coming back to that. And I also really appreciate what you said about, if you don't feel like you've got the energy or the strength or whatever to be that person who's doing that activism piece in a given moment, take that break that you need, let yourself recharge. You will find your way back. It'll be ready for you when you're ready for it. But just trying to keep pushing when you don't really have the energy for it is not going to serve anybody.
Mm-hmm.
We all need to look after ourselves as the primary thing.
Just keep looking after yourself. If all I ever did was just fed my babies and kept them happy, then I'd be doing a good job. I'd be doing my work in my own way, and that's going to help my little family keep our vibration high, and that will transcend through osmosis, and that's okay. But I probably will be at the front lines burning my bra, so I'll see you there.
See you on the front lines. Thank you so much, Stephanie.
Thanks for having me.
It's really a pleasure having you here
Thank
today.
you. Thanks so much. Thanks, Rio.
I don't even know your name. What's his name?
Rio. Like the river. Rio.
Rio.
The river, yes.
Rio Grande.
Yes, yes. Calm like the river.